Hi, greetings. I'm so glad you're taking a moment to open this short presentation from Peer Ministry Leadership. I get to share with you something that I learned on the back of a Perkins restaurant placemat. It was a concept that greatly reshaped, I think, how I understood my own ministry. I think it moved me from being good at what I did to being much more effective. I've been sharing this with people ever since, and I think it's something that you'll find helpful with your own ministry priorities. But I think it's something you'll also want to share with your volunteers and church leaders. In a couple minutes, I'm going to share this concept with you. But first, who am I? That's me, right there. My name is Lyle Greiner. I'm the National Director of Peer Ministry Leadership. I love, love, love my job. As a writer, a speaker, a trainer, a teacher, I've gotten to work with literally thousands of youth and youth leaders and pastors across the country. Beside me, that's Dr. Barbara Varenhorst. We're sitting in a nursing home. She's well into her 90s. But know her story. It goes something like this. As a school counselor in Palo Alto, California, she would often ask her students, who do you go to when there's something going on in your life or somebody else's life that you recognize there was a big stress in? Her observation, they never ever said, well, you, Barbara. They almost always talked about a friend, about another youth that they first confided in or first recognized various stresses. So her premise was, why am I not giving my students some skills in how to care, how to listen, how to reach out, how to welcome, to know who to go to when there's something going on in their lives? She called it peer counseling in the beginning. It became a statewide initiative and then grew across the country in school districts as peer helpers, peer mentoring, peer education, peer mediation, all kinds of things. Churches started to come to Barbara and asking her to work with them. So she rewrote and put together what she called peer ministry. She traveled across the country sharing with churches and with denominations and with campus ministries this work. Myself, a longtime youth minister in Minneapolis, I would take advantage when people would bring her to town to go to her workshops. And obviously, I'm biased, but I loved where it was taking the students that I was working with. So now it's time for the placemat. But first, an illustration. A test, if you would. Stay with me, hang in there. Faith formation. Where does it come from? Yes, of course, stirred up in us by the Holy Spirit. But how is it shaped and nurtured and encouraged in us? Well, here's the test. You need a pencil. Pretend you got a pencil. You're ready to write right in front of you in the air. Got it? Okay, you've got 20 seconds to write down 3 things. Here you go. What are the 3 most influential sermons that have greatly shaped your faith? Ready, set, go. Well, I'm not going to give you the whole 20 seconds, but if you're like most people, you're going to struggle with that one a little bit. Even pastors, sometimes I laugh as they go, oh, I don't know if I could even do that. Here's the second part of the test. Who are the 3 most influential people who have greatly shaped your faith? Ready, go. If you're like most, my guess is some names come fairly quickly to your mind. Well, not to downplay the importance of sermons. I get it. I get why they're there, and I get their influence on my life. But to recognize the importance of people. Relationships is a vital part of faith-forming ministry. Most of us know that and agree with that. In fact, we got into ministry. By the way, that's you. You get to be in on this placemat illustration. But you probably got into this because you liked relationships, because you were good at them. You had a big heart for people in their faith, right? Well, being good is good, but I wonder if we can make that even more effective. Stick with me. Here's how this goes. My friend Mark at Perkins at the restaurant turned over his placemat and he drew a pyramid. And then he started to add some layers to this pyramid. These layers were various programs, various strategies that he used to get at his faith formation. Now, I've recreated them for my own experience. And just know that your strategies might be very different, and that's okay. The important part is that we have a number of strategies. Let me share some of mine real quick. I think when I first started out, very young 20s, I just like to have fun with kids. We like to go on trips. We like to go on outings. We did paintball. We did ski trips. We did hay rides. We did scavenger hunts, all kinds of fun things. Being a camp counselor, I loved camps. And so I loved getting kids out on retreats and camps and doing those things. And it seemed the more that they participated in those, the more they participated in other things. I also was pretty darn good at youth group, right? And could set up some pretty engaging discussions and had fun putting those together. I also learned along the way that there were some opportunities to take kids to some youth conferences, to some concerts, to some various things that were big. And my observation was that it really helped kids recognize that the church was much bigger than just our world at our church. Unique. I think every church has something unique that they get to involve kids in. The first church I worked in was very good at music and put together some spectacular youth musicals. Well, I've seen some really good bell choirs. I've seen some puppet theaters. I'm sure out there someplace is a really good clown ministry yet, and basketball teams, all kinds of things that might make for a unique situation in various churches. I was a little late at discovering the whole service element, but I finally did and recognized that when there was purpose and meaning, kids showed up, and it was significant in their faith development. Congregation as a whole, one of the things I had to do as a youth minister was recognize that the congregation had a lot to offer students, even if they didn't come to my spectacular programs, right? Congregation had opportunities for worship that would include youth in music and children's and arts, all kinds of various things. Family ministry, again, a little late coming on to this, but significant when I recognized that faith development really was dependent upon what happened in the family, both good and bad, and probably being the widest part of the pyramid. Community. People turn around after they learn things and see things in the church and go, yeah, but who really does this? Where is this really lived out? And so to help kids see faith and community was really important. So there you are. Whatever your program strategies are, you've got probably a number of them and some areas that you work to develop. Now, here's an important question. How many kids can you keep up with on a weekly basis to know what they're thinking and feeling? If you're like most, it's a fairly small number. You can probably put them on fingers on your hand. A lot of people will say 3 or 4 or 8, and some will say 12, but that's a lot, especially when you think about that ongoing weekly basis relationship. Well, if that's the case, if ministry is so dependent upon relationships, then think about all those strategies, all those programs that you're trying to keep up and influence. Well, my guess is your pyramid's going to look rather narrow, that your attendance is going to be rather narrow and thin, right? We discover that we are relationally limited. Well, let's exaggerate it the other way. Let's imagine if it's not about ourselves, but that it's about building a whole team of people that are intersecting with 2 or 3 or 8 kids in our programs in various ways. Suddenly, the width and the breadth, and yes, the numbers. I know it's not always about the numbers, but still, we want to be as effective as we can with as many participants as we can in these faith-forming opportunities. So to be effective at that, we add leaders. We'll talk about who those people are in just a minute. Another discovery, though, is that while it wasn't just about the numbers, it was also about the spiritual depth. I noticed it this way. Early on, I was given the opportunity to teach confirmation and to teach the Lord's Prayer. And being who I am, I love to teach. I was good at it. I could do all kinds of experiential programming and filming of skits and give great incentives. My observation, my kids didn't pray because of my fantastic lessons. Just trust me on that. It was when I started adding this team of leaders, some of them youth, some of them adults, some of them people in the congregation, getting youth to interact with various people, that I started to hear my kids verbalize prayer. Well, the realization that faith formation doesn't always come from great lessons and sermons and all the strategies that I seem to have been using. They come from relationships. They come from people who model and mentor faith formation. Suddenly, I started hearing all my kids pray and share openly in groups and in prayers that they had learned from their mentors and models. So spiritual depth becomes a part of this. All right, you get it. It's fairly easy to understand. There's the placemat, and there's the pyramid and your programs and you understand now that it's not just about you, but that maybe your primary job in ministry is to grow relational ministry leaders. I suppose you could compare that to what Jesus did. He seemed to find 12, then that worked well for him, and we know what he accomplished with that. I hope this helps you think about and maybe further define your own ministry. I hope it also helps you think about something to share with your volunteers. Your volunteers need to know why they're there and why their work is so crucial to the ministry of your church. I think you'll also consider wanting to share this with your staff and those who oversee your work. It's important that they understand the relational limitations that you have and why your strategy and so much of your time and your energy becomes that of developing spiritual mentoring leaders. Well, who are those people? I found that youth were very, very effective at being leaders when they were trained, yes, as peer ministers, and that they had great influence on kids as they led groups, as they did one-on-one conversations, as they were in the midst of all the various programs that we did. I also wanted a team of adult volunteers, people that just loved hanging out with kids and having conversations with them. This I thought of almost like my camp counselor crew at my church, that my job was to develop this team of people that were rather active and rather constant within my program. But I also recognized that there were all kinds of people within the congregation, adults that could interact with kids just in the midst of being in the narthex of the church and holding conversations of knowing kids' names. And I needed more and more of those adults of all ages to understand that they had a huge influence on kids also. And then families. My job was to also help families come around and understand how they nurture faith at home and their importance of what they do. Thus, the importance of spending lots and lots of time caring about these people. I found that these are the people that I became almost like a spiritual director for, and that I had to work with them constantly in the midst. Here's the words I use. I thought, and these were important words for me, I sometimes call them my power words, but that I needed to be about equipping people. I needed to give them relational skills. They don't just happen unless you work with people and develop them. I had to equip them. I had to train them. I had to spend time empowering them, nurturing that the skills that we gave them, supporting them, celebrating with them, and like I said earlier, really being kind of their spiritual director and modeling and mentoring what I wanted them to do with kids. And then I had to step back. I had to learn that it's not all about me. I had to allow them, which means that I wasn't the center of everything. Equip, empower, and allow. Write those things down. Hang on to those words. I think that's a big part of your job description. Well, peer ministry leadership. You get the concept, and you get why maybe peer ministry is such an amazing tool. Facilitating people to live ministry, not only in a church, but every day, everywhere, every relationship. Let me share with you some words, 3 more words that are important to our work and what we do. Oftentimes I say at Peer Ministry Leadership, our work is based primarily on relationships and equipping and building and all those things. So we get the importance of that. What we do best is give people real skills to live their faith. And those skills are things that people may have learned in their jobs or in other places, but sometimes have never ever connected them to their faith. Brian McLaren, I got to sit with him for lunch a while back, and he said it's like this. He says, what you're doing is about the church. The church is about love, and that's got to be the main thing. He said, the problem is, and then he hesitated, and he said, it's like this. He says, it's like going to a yoga class. And you get to the yoga class and you don't do exercises. There are no mats. Instead, we sit in straight rows and we listen to somebody talk about the benefits of yoga. And we're very inspired by that. We sing songs about the downward dog and the upward cobra. Maybe it's the other way around. But you get the idea. We do all this and we leave feeling very good about yoga, but we never do yoga. We never learn the actual exercises and skills of yoga. He said that's what the church has become. It's become a place to listen and to watch and to observe and to feel good about it. But we have to do the work of getting down to the actual skills of learning how to love every neighbor. We love, right? Because God first loved us. That's our motivation. Well, those 3 words drive a lot of what we do. We get to work a lot with high school groups. We get to work a lot with middle school groups. By the way, middle school kids, they're very hungry to figure out relationships. So we have a program called Everyday Samaritan, making a friend, welcoming a friend, understanding a friend, helping a friend, walking beside a friend. It's a great one. I hope you take a look at it. Campus ministries all over the place, helping them begin and enhance what they do on campuses. Throughout our time, people would come up to us after a peer ministry workshop and say, this should be for adults. So the last couple of years, this all-in relational ministry has become very popular and is becoming sought after by a lot of churches. Adults constantly come up to us and say, why didn't anybody ever tell us this stuff before? And sometimes learning the skills for the first time, but so often never connecting them to their faith. Family ministry. Don't expect families to do anything that they haven't first learned hands-on at your church. You have to equip, empower, and allow families for ministry in their homes. So you become the learning lab, if you would, to help families do some of the simplest things. Our families say, all we want to know is how to pray with our kids. And keep it simple, but they need the tools and resources and the training to be able to do that. Well, we're working on all that. And right now, we're doing certification trainings where we're training you as the leaders to be able to turn around and facilitate all these various programs. We'd love to have you look into that. We'd love to have you join in on one of these very soon. Primarily, we'd love to come to your church. And we're hoping, and we're starting to make some dates for next fall. to come back where we get to work with not only you, but we get to work with your whole group and with all your leaders, with a good group of your students, and to kick things off, to get it started, to greatly enhance what you're already doing, and to work with you there. Again, check out the website. All right, that's pretty much it. One more quick thing. If you go to the website, there's a chapter in this little book that we call Planet, Planning for Your Youth Ministry. And there's chapter 4 is about this pyramid. It's been put in the store for free. You can just go and get it right now. And it's a short chapter, but it's going to have some of the illustrations and some of the pieces that you'll want to turn around and reflect on and hopefully use with your leaders. Be sure to go back to the store each month, because each month we have something free there for you. Thanks, you guys. Blessings, and we'll catch you down the road. Hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.